The story starts with a crowd protesting against a woman, accusing the Duke of disrespecting the Empress and bringing shame to the four great families of the Ral's Empire. The woman remains silent as one of the men from the crowd calls out to her. He remarks on her expensive attire, even though she's heading towards her execution. Surprising him, she tears her dress a little and explains that she specifically chose an amethyst hem for this day. With a smirk, she questions why he despises it so much. Then, she turns around and walks away, while the man curses her. The others claim that her clothes are cursed and no one should touch them. Looking up at the sky, her expression turns sad as she wonders why she's being condemned when she hasn't done anything wrong. Her gaze falls upon Duke Cassis of the Vawa family, an emotionless devil who instills fear in everyone. As she passes by him, she realizes he's her father, with whom she's never had a proper conversation. Despite being his daughter, she knows that if she had assisted him in his deceitful schemes, it wouldn't be unfair for her to die like this. However, she questions why she was born as his daughter in the first place. Suddenly, a man calls out her name, Valisha Vawa. He emits a strong light from his sword, and she thinks that just like her, he didn't have the right parents, yet he became the emperor of a foreign land. He declares that this is the end. He introduces himself as Peter D. Rolls, the emperor of the Ral's Empire, and asks her if all Vawa are emotionless. He admits that he wanted to see even a hint of regret in her eyes before she died. Leaning closer, he reveals that after investigating, he discovered she had nothing to do with the Duke. He informs her that her sentence can be changed if she kneels now. It will still be a death sentence, but it won't be as agonizing. She places her hand on her chest and asks him to just kill her. The emperor is taken aback as the man yells at her, questioning how dare she speak informally to his majesty. She is commonly referred to as the devil's daughter, although she is well aware of the misconception. He believed that she would embody the qualities of a noble spirit, given her affiliation with the four great families. In response, she questions the significance of status in the face of death, expressing disbelief that those of lower social standing would dare to challenge Vawa. As he tightens his grip on his sword, he declares his intention to end her meaningless existence, exerting all his strength as he aims the weapon towards her. She crouches down and closes her eyes, believing it to be her final moments, until she awakens once again in the spiritual realm. Suddenly, her eyes open and she finds herself in a different location. She realizes that she always returns to this place whenever she dies, the spiritual world where the spirits of all characters converge. Upon arriving here, she comprehends that she is merely a character in a story that has already been written. The inhabitants of this world are all characters in a narrative crafted by a higher power. They are categorized as either main or extras. While the main characters have the ability to shape their own stories, the extras are confined to their assigned roles. Escaping the predetermined storyline is an impossibility. They must faithfully live out the roles assigned to them. Among them, those who endlessly repeat their lives are known as extra professionals, and she is one of them. She is Valisha Vawa, the villain's daughter, the 99th villain's daughter. Despite living through countless lives, her role has always been that of the villain's daughter. Perhaps that is why her attempts at doing good never yield the desired outcome. She finds herself uttering words she never intended to say and engaging in actions she never wished to take, tormented without understanding why. She questions why she is living a life where her own desires are rendered immobile. Only upon returning to the spiritual world, like now, do all her memories come flooding back. She experiences a throbbing headache as she contemplates about her current existence, realizing that it is vastly different from before. Her supposed father was so fixated on the female protagonist that he neglected his own daughter, leading to rumors that she was an abandoned young miss. Growing up feeling abandoned, she understands that if her so-called father had prioritized his own daughter, they would not have faced execution. She questions whether a villain who becomes obsessed with his daughter would still be considered a villain, knowing that this would deviate from the original storyline. She acknowledges that only the main characters have the power to alter the narrative, while the supporting characters have no influence. Occasionally, the story can be rewritten, but the opportunity for redemption is only granted to the main characters. As an extra, she reflects on how this is something she can only dream of. Suddenly, she feels weightless, realizing that she is already transitioning to the next life. The rapidity of this change astonishes her, making her wonder if it is because this is her 100th reincarnation. She prays to God, pleading not to endure another lonely existence. Opening her eyes in a different body, she examines her hands, contemplating whether she is still an infant. She finds it peculiar to even entertain such thoughts. Observing her black hair, reminiscent of her previous life, she is interrupted by a woman who berates her. The woman scolds her and questions why she is sitting on the floor, emphasizing that if she wants food, she must pay for it. Confused, she gazes at the woman, sensing a familiarity as if she has encountered her countless times before. She addresses the woman as Alice, only to be unexpectedly slapped. Bewildered, pondering why the individual who tormented her in her previous life is now present, causing her distress once again. She wonders why that person still exists in this life, causing her to feel anxious as she realizes it makes no sense at all. Turning around, she is shocked to find herself in Viscount Ilian's home. Noticing her messy black hair and clothes from working out, she finds it ridiculous and wonders if she has somehow returned to her past life. Curious, she asks Alice who she is. Alice mocks her, saying that she must be acting crazy because she doesn't want to clean. She even calls her Valicia and asks if she has forgotten her own name. Shocked, she realizes that she has actually regressed. Suddenly, a flashback to her childhood begins, with her hiding alongside her mother, Vivian. Vivian was afraid of her husband, Cassin, and his twisted obsession. After discovering she was pregnant, Vivian ran away from Vawa Manor and begged the Viscount for help. However, they ended up being treated poorly, even worse than commoners. And now, she has returned to those days of mistreatment. She knows that regression isn't something that happens to extras, but she also knows that this is still part of the story. She mentions this, acknowledging that she is a professional at being an extra, just as the Viscount appears and questions what all the fuss is about. Alice bows and explains to the Viscount that she asked Valicia to mop the floor, but she didn't listen. The Viscount seems frustrated as he asks if she really didn't listen. Alice confirms this and mentions that Valicia's training is still ongoing. He angrily calls out to Valicia and asks if it's true. She flinches in fear as he reminds her that he took her in even though she had nowhere else to go. Valicia wonders if she has truly regressed, if she has been given the same opportunity as the main characters to change her life. She pinches herself, feeling the pain, and realizes that this is not a dream. The Viscount questions if she has gone mad, unable to understand what is happening. The Viscount inquires about the situation, but Alice explains that this has been ongoing for some time. The Viscount gazes at Alice and questions her thoughts. He wonders if she should take action if Valicia is not listening. Alice replies that she must first be disciplined. The Viscount agrees, causing Valicia to flinch. He orders her to be placed in solitary confinement and disciplined until she becomes obedient. Valicia contemplates the idea of solitary confinement once more, pondering whether she will have to endure a life without food and water. She knows that according to the original story, her father will come looking for her mother. Despite knowing that her father is destined to die, she needs him now. She clenches her fist before asking the Viscount if he recognizes her identity. The Viscount questions her, but before she kneels down, she fiercely stares at him and demands to know if he knows who her father is. She points at him and questions how he dares to treat her like a slave. She is aware that despite their downfall, her family is still one of the great four families. She emphasizes that she is a Valois' daughter. She demands that they contact her father immediately, causing Alice to flinch as well. One maid asks the other if a noble guest is expected, to which the other maid responds that only the Viscount is present. The Viscount acknowledges her as a noble, quoting, "Fools rush in where angels fear to tread." He confirms that she is indeed a noble before she questions his disrespect towards the Valois family. He points at her and questions her true identity as a member of the Valois family. He touches her, causing her to fall. He chuckles, remarking that she fell just from his touch. He warns her that if she wishes to be treated as a noble, she must understand that nobles who abandon their families are lower than commoners. She trembles as he kneels down and asserts that she does not have that privilege. He states that she isn't relying on him to find her, claiming it won't happen. Valicia stares fiercely at him, asserting that it will happen soon and he will perish. Observing her glare, he seizes her by her clothing and mentions that he has provided her with food and shelter. He shoves her away, causing her to fall to the ground. Inquiring how much more mercy she requires, he declares that she is neither a noble nor a commoner. He instructs Alice to escort her to the disciplinary room, prompting Alice to inquire about the specific room. The Viscount suggests placing her in the room with her mother. He decides to send her there, causing Valicia to flinch. She realizes that her mother has never been in a disciplinary room until now. Thunder rumbles as she is led to the disciplinary room. They push her, causing her to stumble. Informing the guard that she does not require a meal, they state that they will return in a few days, mentioning that fearless Vawa is corrupt to its core and the Duke is wreaking havoc on the Ral Empire, with both his wife and daughter in solitary confinement. She notices her mother beside her and calls out to her. Trembling, she uncovers her mother's face. She cries out to her unconscious mother, repeatedly calling her name but receiving no response. Looking out at the rain, she questions why she must endure the same fate again. Hearing a noise, she turns towards the door and demands to know who is there. Thunder crashes as she sees a boy with blonde hair. Shocked, she takes a step back upon realizing he is Peter, the male lead who killed her. Noticing they are the same age, she is filled with anxiety, unable to believe that Peter is here. She calls out to him and asks for his name. He replies that his name is Cyan. She inquires about Cyan as she calls out to him, pointing at him and inquiring about the color of his eyes. He remains silent, leaving her to wonder why he isn't responding. She reaches out towards him, deciding to investigate for herself. Removing his hair, she notices his eyes are black. He adjusts his bangs. Apologizing for touching him carelessly, she recalls that Peter has golden eyes. Letting out a sigh, she realizes it cannot be him. Suddenly remembering something, she questions if she just ended up apologizing. Inquiring if he is also trapped here, she contemplates if her concern for him is due to her regression. Knowing she used to struggle to act kindly, she asks if he confronted the Viscount as well. Avoiding eye contact, he covers his head and crouches down as she gazes at him. Sitting down beside him, she mentions that she was imprisoned here. Covering her head as well, he makes a sound, causing her to look at him. Observing that he is trembling, she becomes worried, asking what's wrong and if he is hurt. Trembling, he responds no, his expression appearing sad. Assuring him it's not that bad, his stomach growls. Inquiring if he is hungry, his stomach growls again, indicating he is very hungry. Thinking she should do something kind, she offers him something to eat, mentioning that he should consider himself fortunate as she had saved it for herself. It is her first act of kindness after regression and her first secret of all her thundered lives. Declining, he says he doesn't need it as he cannot repay her. Frustrated, she contemplates that she is attempting to be a good person for the first time. Urging him to take it, she explains she has an allergy so she cannot eat it. He suggests she throw it away, deeming it pointless. Wondering if she should continue being a bad person in this life as she acknowledges that being good is not easy. She clutches onto his arms before yanking him closer. With force, she shoves it into his mouth, telling him that she forcefully fed him and now he has no choice but to eat it. He retorts, saying that she shouldn't expect him to repay her later. As he eats, she contemplates how satisfying it is to see him enjoy his meal. She also realizes that he never actually said thank you. Despite that, she knows that her kind gesture feels good. Later on, while she is with her mother, he asks if she can reveal her name. She introduces herself as Valicia, or Villy for short, a name her mother used to affectionately call her. No one has ever loved her like that before, especially not someone who used her nickname with such warmth, her mom. Sadly, her mother is now resting eternally. He remains silent as she requests him not to feel sorry for her or anything of the sort. She explains that she plans to leave behind her miserable life and start anew, now that she has the chance to live differently. She falls asleep next to her mother. When she wakes up, she realizes that Cyan is no longer there. She scans her surroundings, wondering if he managed to escape. Before she can comprehend the situation, something explodes, causing her to collapse in pain. In agony, she trembles on the ground. Someone calls out her name, and she recognizes the voice. It's her father, Cassis Vawa. He rushes to Vivian and pleads for her to wake up, tears streaming down his face. As he holds her close, her lifeless hand slips from his grasp. He turns to Valicia and demands to know who killed Vivian. She locks eyes with him as he approaches, repeating his question. She knows deep down that it was her monstrous father with 99 lives, and this is how the main villain came to be. An aura of undeniable malevolence surrounds him, filling the air with an evil presence. He glares at her, and his magic conjures a spectral rope that coils around her neck, tightening its grip, slowly suffocating her as she futilely struggles against its ethereal hold. She returns his glare, refusing to back down, trying to convey to him that even if he vents his anger on her, her mother won't return. Suddenly, his knight commander, Iman, arrives. He glances at the child and attempts to say something, but the Duke interrupts him, claiming that she is insignificant. As his commander looks at her, his expression changes to one of confusion, sweat trickling down his face, his features contorted in bewilderment. Valisha believes that Dad doesn't recognize her once again. It is Iman who recognizes her first. The Duke orders him to simply search the manor. As he lifts his wife in his arms, his attention is once again captured by Valisha, who curses him and questions why he is coming now after all these years. She ends up bursting into tears, demanding to know why he is so late if he has been trying so hard to find her. The Duke turns around to face her after her outburst. All he says is that he thought she was mute, but she can indeed speak. He then instructs him to search first. Iman, looking panicked, tells him that's not the issue. He asks her to closely observe Valisha's features and points out that her eye and hair color look familiar. Then he questions if he just heard her call Vivian, Mom. Cassin's eyes widen as he comprehends what his commander is implying. However, he doesn't bother turning around and keeps his back facing her. He orders her to be taken for a blood test. A knight kneels down in front of her and hesitantly asks her to follow. She takes a few steps towards him. He then inquires if she is feeling all right and if she would like him to carry her. They proceed through a secret passage leading to an underground storehouse. He enters a cell where the Viscount is being held captive by his knights. He reminds him that Vivian was locked up in solitary confinement. The man begins to beg desperately, claiming there must be a misunderstanding. His eyes turn cold and ruthless at his words. The man reveals that when Lady Vivian came to visit, she expressed her desire to stay at their manor. He goes on to explain that during that time, the way she looked was simply beyond words and she didn't resemble a noble in the slightest. The man emphasizes how he would have known if she was His Excellency's wife. Valisha scoffs at the absurdity of his lie, especially since she was wearing a brooch that symbolized the Vawa family, one with a black panther. He shamelessly reminds them that he provided her with food and shelter, even though she was an unknown individual. The Duke coldly mutters the word, unknown. He sarcastically remarks that he had no knowledge of his search for Vivian. He grabs the man's hair to lift his face up and asserts that even if he didn't recognize the brooch she gave him while asking for a favor, he should have sought confirmation at least once throughout all those years. He reminds him that he had been searching everywhere for his wife. Is he implying that he never heard about it until now? Tisha speaks up to confirm that he knew, but intentionally concealed it due to his animosity. She points an accusing finger at him as she reveals that he neglected her sick mother and treated her like a slave. As memories resurface of her mother lying on the cold floors of solitary confinement, she adds that he even locked her mother away in solitary confinement. The man still tries to deny the accusations, claiming that the child is only 5 years old and has misunderstood what happened. He looks at her daughter and notices she is wearing an old-fashioned uniform. He tells his daughter that the Vawa family always reciprocates what they receive, so if she is truly a Vawa, she must decide the punishment for the Viscount herself. This confuses her, but at the same time, Iman rushes to her defense. An evil smirk appears on the Viscount's face as he sees this as an opportunity. He begins begging once again, admitting that he has committed a grave sin deserving of death, but if he has to bear her punishment instead, he willingly accepts it. Valisha can see him trying to conceal his wicked smile. She could see the thoughts playing on his face. With confidence, she responds that they should start with his fingers. The man is taken aback and his face drains of color as he realizes what she means. She plans to chop off his fingers. Remembering her mother's words about the Vawa family's magical abilities, she smiles, knowing that she has faced this situation before and now he must accept his fate. The man pleads with her, fully aware that his destiny lies in her hands. He starts addressing her as a young lady, to which she sarcastically thinks to herself, so now I'm a young lady. Looking down at him with pure malice in her eyes, she reminds him that it's too late to change his fate. She decides to start with his fingers, working her way towards the center, and then his toes as well, beginning with the little toe. Sarcasm drips from her voice as she suggests that if they were to cut off his head right away, he would go straight to heaven. Instead, they will take their time, one by one, with his fingers and toes. Iman whispers in awe about her clear lineage, but Cassin reminds him that a blood test is still needed to confirm. However, Iman believes that this revelation is more accurate than any blood test. The Duke, still holding his deceased wife, gazes at her and notices a resemblance in their eyes. Later, his commander arrives and informs the Duke that the Viscountess and the remaining servants have escaped through the back door. He also mentions finding a child in the warehouse, who appears to have been a slave used by the Viscount. Ville's eyes widen as she recognizes the child. It is Cyan. The Duke orders that once Cyan wakes up, he should be interrogated and dealt with accordingly. Fear contorts Ville's face as she wonders if dealing with him means killing him, especially since he hasn't done anything wrong. She tugs on the Duke's clothes, pleading with him not to kill Cyan. He did not commit any wrongdoing, and he is simply a child. He gazes at her and questions if she is referring to that child. He then smirks at her, inquiring who claimed he would harm her. He merely suggests going to the duchy where they will provide him with treatment. While en route to the duchy, Vivian remains nestled in his arms, while Valicia sits across from them. He looks at her daughter and reminds her that he still does not know her name. She informs him that her name is Valicia and her mother called her Villy. He gently strokes his deceased wife's hair as he recalls her promise to give him a gift. Now, as he looks at his daughter, he realizes that she is the gift. The maids and workers have already gathered, and the news has already reached them. Lisa is filled with excitement as she ponders about the young miss. The head maid informs Lisa that she will now be solely responsible for taking care of the young miss. She also warns her that she will have a lot of work ahead of her, so she should be cautious. The announcement captures their attention as His Excellency arrives. He steps out of the carriage with his deceased wife. Lisa believes that the Duchess has indeed passed away. She feels remorseful because she cannot believe she was so eager to care for the young miss in such a somber situation. Her gaze falls upon Valicia, and she feels that she is the one facing the most difficult time at the moment. Therefore, she is determined to do her best. Later, Lisa introduces herself to the young miss and informs her that she will be serving her from now on. She smiles at her, assuring her that she will ensure her happiness by taking good care of her. Valicia wonders if Lisa is truly capable of smiling like that. Suddenly, she feels ashamed, realizing that there is a reason for her to keep crying, even if she is able to smile. The memories of her mistreatment resurface in her mind. She remembers that she was initially bright and cheerful, but things worsened because of her. She lets out a deep sigh and believes that it is her fault. Lisa then asks her if she would like to eat first or if she should prepare a bath for her. She informs Lisa that she prefers to do it alone, but Lisa smiles warmly at her. Despite her reserved demeanor, she tells her that she may not be accustomed to receiving help with bathing, but she will adjust to it. As she assists her with the bath, her gaze falls upon the scars on her back, likely from past beatings. Tears well up in her eyes, but Valicia acts as if she is unaware. Later, she is dressed elegantly and wears 2 pigtails, resembling the young lady that she is. Valicia inquires if there are any specific foods she cannot eat so that she can inform the kitchen. The table is adorned with a magnificent selection of mouthwatering dishes, each expertly crafted by the head chef himself, who takes great pride in his culinary skills. He boasts about his cooking, particularly the freshly grilled fish he caught and the choice meat from the lively animals that roam the mountains and fields. He expresses how he poured his heart and soul into these dishes, and the joy radiates from his spirit. Valicia reflects on how the chef used to be cheerful until she was exposed as an evil child. All eyes are on her, and the chef encourages her to try the food. She finds it somewhat bothersome and feels uncomfortable with everyone's gaze, fearing she might get indigestion. Nevertheless, she awkwardly smiles at them and compliments, "It's delicious." The chef bursts into joyful dance, as his cooking is indeed exceptional. She recalls how she used to reject his dishes daily, claiming they were unsavory, and playfully scolds herself for being foolish. She casts a sidelong glance at her maids, wondering how much longer they will continue to observe her. However, Lisa notices her unease and gives the maids a stern look. They quickly leave the room, and Valicia sighs with relief, grateful that they are finally gone. Lisa acknowledges that being new to Vawa Manor must make everything feel strange and awkward for her. Valicia silently disagrees with Lisa's assumption. It feels so familiar, that's why it's giving her goosebumps. She smiles at her, letting her know that tomorrow she will take her for a walk around the castle and share everything with her. Lisa is convinced that she will love it here so much that she won't want to leave or get married. The other person looks at Lisa in disbelief, thinking that even if she wanted to stay forever, she would be long gone before that. As she combs her hair, she asks if this is her first time meeting her dad. She ponders to herself that maybe it feels like their first meeting because he has been working so hard to save her mom and not leave her alone. Lisa then reveals that His Excellency has not stayed in the manor since the Duchess departed. Rumor has it that he searched for the Duchess everywhere in the Empire and even beyond. She mentions that he loved his wife so much, so she is confident he will also love her. She jokes that he might become a fool for his daughter. However, she wants to tell Lisa that it's not like that. She needs to push those thoughts aside. His obsession with Mom caused their downfall. As she places the brush on the dresser, she adds that His Excellency is more like a hero in a romance novel. She's frustrated because that's not the case. She got it wrong. He's not the hero but the villain, unaware of her thoughts. She also mentions that she's happy because it makes her feel like a character in a romance novel too. She eagerly anticipates seeing the kind of man the young miss will meet in the future. However, she apologizes because she is the daughter of the villain in this story. She is the daughter of a villain who is facing death, and not only that, she is also destined to die after encountering the hero of the romance novel. Her face shows concern as she thinks about it. Lisa also wonders what she should do. How heartbreaking it must be for her to lose her mother overnight. She recognizes the necessity to shift the conversation and ponders what to do next, what to discuss. Suddenly, an idea crosses her mind that the young miss has just arrived at an unfamiliar place and will likely require some time to adjust. She plans to demonstrate to her how magnificent this place truly is. She questions whether she is still unfamiliar with Vawa, correct? However, she believes otherwise. She knows her family quite well. Lisa informs her that this place surpasses her expectations, almost like a fairy tale castle. Prior to commencing her duties as a maid, she had heard numerous ghost stories about maids who perished while serving the nobility, which initially made her apprehensive. Nevertheless, her experience here has made her realize that this is, indeed, a job straight out of her dreams. There are strict working hours, 3 delectable meals daily, a designated rest area for servants, as well as rejuvenating vacations. She contemplates that this is due to the fact that it was a household without a master until now, and her life will gradually become unbearable, particularly if she adheres to her previous role. However, following the regression, she was able to perform the benevolent acts that were previously beyond her reach. She muses that perhaps she will no longer be perceived as the villain's daughter. Leading a virtuous life now seems within reach. Upon concluding her account, Lisa inquires whether the family is truly remarkable. The young miss is thrilled and exclaims, "Is that so? The family is like that? It's so different from the rumors circulating outside." She mentions that the rumors she heard involved the family dismembering disobedient servants. Lisa gasps and questions who would dare spread such dreadful rumors to the young miss. She promptly defends them, expressing her indignation that she should not lend an ear to such malicious gossip as nothing of the sort occurs here. The Vawa family is an esteemed family, having ascended to become one of the 4 great families of the empire solely due to their prowess in swordsmanship. The Duke has led numerous wars and conquests. He played a significant role in establishing the current empire. Additionally, there exists a form of magic that can only be utilized by the direct descendants of the family, each possessing their own unique ability. As a result, the direct line of the Vawa family is considerably more powerful than the rest. After conveying all of this information to Lisa, she desires for her to take pride in being a young lady of the Vawa family. Tisha realizes that Lisa is truly loyal and is astonished by how much she had tormented her in her previous life. However, Lisa remains unaware that the esteemed family is on the verge of collapse. She intends to inquire if Tisha comprehends the terrifying nature of a man consumed by his deceased wife. She recalls how he abandoned everything and everyone associated with his family. Among the individuals he encountered, some claimed to possess the knowledge of resurrection, but their deceit was soon exposed, resulting in their demise at the hands of his father. The man who had lied informed him that it was beyond his own capabilities, but perhaps divine power could assist him. This miraculous power, known throughout the empire and wielded by the Saintess Empress Asilis, had the ability to heal any injury. The man mentioned that he had heard the Empress was willing to extend her healing abilities to those in need, regardless of their status, and he needed to approach her for assistance. With the aid of divine power, she could potentially bring his wife back to life. He declared that if this was his dying wish, then it wasn't such a terrible fate, and he mercilessly killed the man. As he continued to take lives, he became increasingly desensitized, transforming into a heartless monster. Anyone deemed useless was swiftly discarded by him. At some point, his sole remaining emotion became the obsession to revive his wife. He descended into madness. Eventually, he arrived at the imperial palace and beseeched the empress to resurrect his wife. However, the empress informed him that while she may be a saintess, it was impossible for her to bring the dead back to life, even with her divine powers. She mentioned that the duchess's misfortune was truly unfortunate and suggested that he find a way to overcome it. However, he interrupted her halfway and questioned how she could be so certain when she hadn't even attempted it yet. To the empress's horror, he ended up killing someone right in front of her. He warned her that unless she brought his wife, Vivian, back to life. One night, as the empress trembled in her room next to the bed, he approached her. She tried to explain that she couldn't fulfill his request. Treating a wound and resurrecting a person were two completely different things. She advised him to give up now. This only made him angrier, as he believed she was telling him to give up on Vivian. He declared that if she couldn't be saved, then both she and her divine power were worthless, and he ended up killing the queen. As a result of becoming the murderer of the empress, the imperial family seized all of the Vawa family's assets, and all of his direct relatives were sentenced to death as well. Lisa bids the young miss good night as she departs. She lies awake in her bed, thinking that now that she has returned, she can live her life differently. Isn't changing the original novel the privilege of regression? She wonders if she can change her villainous father, the man who was so obsessed with bringing her mother back to life that he even killed the empress. On the other hand, Vivian lies lifeless on the Duke's bed. The Duke holds her hand and realizes that although he can use his magic to prevent her from disappearing, he will never hear her voice again or see the smile she used to give him. He leans in closer, gently touching her face, and apologizes for being so late. Tears well up in his eyes as he realizes he couldn't protect her. He continues to apologize to her. The Duke of the House Bluebell watches his daughter playing with the maids and asks the butler, "Isn't it time for her magic class? Why is she playing out here?" The butler responds, "The magic teacher caught a cold, so they're taking a few days off. It would be a big problem if the young miss got sick." The Duke frowns and asks why she has to go and play around when she doesn't have classes. He says that if she doesn't have the magic talent of the Black Panther, she needs to work 4 times harder. He has emphasized this many times. The butler says, but still, she's just a child. He reminds him about the young Miss of Valois, with her great bloodline, who will soon be able to use magic effortlessly. After taking a sip of his wine, the Duke says he can't drink it anymore. The butler offers to get him another glass. He then reminds him, there's still no news about Viscount Ilian. The butler replies, it's been a long time since we heard from him. Could it be that Duke Kaizen? But then he stops talking. He thinks it's possible and sarcastically mutters, isn't that the great Valois family for you? However, he then says they should just watch and let them destroy themselves. He asks, when is the Duchess's funeral? The butler says, according to the report, there won't be one. It's sad that her body is preserved using magic to prevent decay. He smiles wickedly, thinking about living with a corpse. He has been investigating him ever since he abandoned his family to find his runaway wife. He comments, what a loyal husband. He then asks the butler if he knows how to manipulate people to do what he wants. The butler asks, do you mean exploiting their weaknesses? He says that all one can do is threaten, but the real way is to play with their desires. What they want the most will also become their weakness. He knows that Duke Kaizen's weakness is the beloved Duchess. On the other hand, Kaizen is still in his room next to his dead wife. Sitting on the floor, Iman opens the curtains and tells him it's time to wake up. He then informs him that the Duke of Bell is here. The Duke mutters that he's still the same as always. Emerging unexpectedly without any prior notice, his commander's attention shifts towards the Duchess, prompting him to cautiously inquire about the duration of her confinement in the bedroom. A sudden surge of anger engulfs him like molten lava as he contemplates whether it is wrong to keep his wife by his side. Iman attempts to reason with him, explaining that she cannot be confined to the bedroom indefinitely, in a place devoid of sunlight. Vivian adored basking in the sun and had a fondness for flowers. It would be ideal if she had a place in the garden instead. He descends and extends his greetings to the Duke of Bell. Upon laying eyes on Kaizen, he is taken aback, as rumors had circulated that he was intoxicated with alcohol, so why does his countenance radiate such brightness? He questions the Duke if he has encountered any difficulties thus far, but his query is disregarded, with the Duke simply remarking, that's just like him, arriving without any forewarning. The man apologizes and informs him that he heard about the Duchess's passing. Kaizen's demeanor stiffens, and he reiterates that he discovered his wife lifeless. Has he not been informed that there will be no funeral? The Duke of Bell asserts that even if he clings onto a deceased person, he cannot bring her back to life. Why would he harbor such futile hopes? The Duke retorts, does he believe himself to be a fool? The Duke of Bell hastily denies this and expresses his respect for him. He adds, in certain aspects, he is someone I admire, someone I cannot emulate. My wife often pesters him about it, urging him to follow the Duke's example. The man remarks, if they were similar, his wife would have found herself in the same predicament as the Duchess. This statement incites Kaizen's fury, causing his teeth to clench in anger. He angrily asserts that the Duke must have eagerly awaited this day to unleash years' worth of mockery all at once. However, the Duke also issues a veiled threat, suggesting that he may desire for his wife to witness her husband's lifeless body. Once again, his magic spirals out of control, emanating an aura of malevolence. Desperately attempting to shield himself from the onslaught, he implores the Duke to calm down. He did not come here today to meet his demise at the hands of the Duke. Unfortunately, his attempt to protect himself from his magic had ended up burning. He asserts his purpose of coming here is to bring his deceased wife back to life. Kaizen's eyes widen in disbelief, but he quickly regains his composure and warns him against playing games with such a serious matter. He questions the man's claim of being able to revive her. Instead of confirming, the Duke of Bell inquires if he would go to any lengths to achieve this. Kaizen confidently states that he would willingly sacrifice everything for her revival. The man's demeanor turns smug as he believes he has caught Kaizen's attention. He clarifies that he himself cannot bring her back, but there might be a way for them to do so. He mentions the existence of sorcerers who seek power without ethical boundaries. The Duke explains that those who openly claim to be sorcerers are frauds, as the true wielders of power keep their identities hidden. Their source of strength is death, using it to fuel their abilities at the cost of another's life. Revealing themselves as sorcerers would mean admitting to being killers. He goes on to mention the legends of sorcerers being able to resurrect the dead. The man questions the Duke if he has never heard of such tales. Kaizen interrupts angrily, rejecting the man's attempts to sway him with his stories. The Duke of Bell states that whether or not his wife is revived does not concern him, but it clearly matters to the man. He claims to be sharing this information in hopes of restoring the Vawa family's former glory, as the Bell family is a branch of the Vawa lineage. Meanwhile, the maids are engaged in playing with dolls. One maid, mimicking a male doll, mentions how he has spent 7 sleepless years missing her. The other maid, mimicking a female doll, dismisses his words and points out the saliva stain around his mouth, indicating that he has just woken up. The male toy informs her that's what happens when he sees her. She is so beautiful that he can't resist it. The female toy replies, actually, same here. Valicia seems quite fed up with them. As the maids gaze at her, they inquire if she's not enjoying herself. She replies, no, it's really fun. She tells them that Lily and Daisy act so authentically that she can't look away. She even gives them a 5-star rating. The maids are delighted, proclaiming her as the acting goddess of this region. And Valicia thinks she needs to win the maids over to her side. The great success in her career, the steady income, and the monthly allowance would be enough for her to not worry about making a living for the rest of her life. She knows that staying in Vawa Manor will only lead to her demise, so she decides to escape to a free nation. And she wonders what would happen if she runs away, gets caught, and is banned from ever leaving again. Not only does she need to save up for an emergency fund, but she also needs to securely transfer that money to a free nation. With a determined expression on her face, she realizes she needs to gather some allies. The maid asks if there's something on her face, to which she responds no. The other maid brings a freshly baked cream cake. Valicia mentions wanting a cherry tart. She realizes that she said it without realizing she needed 3 to 4 takes to understand the role of the villain's daughter. She knows she wanted it a minute ago, and now she wants a cherry tart. The maid points out that she clearly wanted the cream cake just now. Valicia admits that she gets a little annoyed when the maid nags like that. The maid promises to bring it right away. At that moment, Valicia changes her mind and asks her to put it back as she now wants mill fuel. She knows that if she were in the maid's position, she would have eaten poison. The maid questions if there's something on her face as Valicia suddenly stares at her. Valicia swears at the maid, leaving her completely stunned. Valicia herself is taken aback and wonders why she suddenly started swearing. She realizes that if she wants to be good, she needs to act good. So, she turns around and thanks the maid instead. As she takes a bite of the cake, she contemplates how habits can be scary. The maid responds by saying it's a pleasure to serve her, but Valisha notices that they seem sad and the words just slipped out of their mouths. The maid admits that she didn't even realize she said it and sympathizes with Valisha, acknowledging that it must be tough for her. They engage in a conversation, questioning each other's thoughts. They wonder if Valisha is heartbroken. The other maid feels sorry for her because she's trying to act like everything is fine at such a young age. They discuss this in the servant lounge and wonder how Valisha can remain so strong. The maid admits that it's clearly not okay and hopes that Valisha will get better soon. They had assumed she would enjoy eating the delicious desserts, but instead, she eats them with a serious expression. Valisha thinks to herself that she needs to be more careful from now on. One of the maids asks what one does when they're sad, and the other responds with a romantic scenario from a novel. They talk about reading romance novels until the other maid slams the table, stating that it's inappropriate for a young child like Valisha. The first maid clarifies that she was just talking about reading novels, not anything inappropriate. They both wonder if Valisha needs time to compose herself, considering she recently lost her mother. They also acknowledge that she needs to adjust to her new environment and that at any age, she deserves time to gather her thoughts. They question if they've been bothering her too much, which shocks them. They decide that from now on, it would be good to give Valisha some alone time. Meanwhile, they continue their duties. Kaizen informs the attendant that he will be temporarily leaving the manor. The attendant expresses concern for the young miss, who recently moved in and might feel lost. He suggests that Kaizen stay by her side for a few days. Kaizen remains silent before explaining that he knows how to handle the young miss in the best way. The attendant is taken aback but eventually agrees. He realizes that the young miss is only 5 years old and it has been a while since he last saw her. Meanwhile, Valisha feels isolated and believes that nobody has interacted with her for a long time. She can't even get the maids to support her. Knowing that there's no one to read her a bedtime story, she decides to read one on her own. She opens a book about a wolf who lived alone but was joined by a baby wolf. As she reads, she wonders why she's crying despite being the daughter of a villain. She acknowledges her ability to feel sadness and loneliness. Valisha tries to stop herself from crying, understanding that no one will come to comfort her because she is the villain's daughter. She convinces herself that this is normal and the reason why nobody loves her. To regain her composure, she covers her ears and reminds herself that this is her 100th life. Suddenly, a maid grabs her hand and advises her not to harm herself no matter how difficult things may be. Valisha looks at the maid, who then informs the other maids that they have prevented her from self-harm. She instructs them to bring cocoa and blankets for the young miss. Additionally, the maid mentions that the young mystic operation will be altered to provide more assistance and support. Valisha is confused and has no idea what is happening. Valisha sat wrapped in a blanket, gazing into the distance with a vacant expression. She noticed Lisa crying and wondered how Lisa knew she was alone in her room. Meanwhile, 2 of the maids were discussing whether or not to inform His Excellency. Just then, the doctor arrived and announced that he would examine the bruised area. Valisha felt a bit nervous as his hand slowly approached her, but to her relief, he only pinched her cheeks. Since she didn't react, he declared that she was fine. Lisa was astonished that he could diagnose her with just a single touch on the cheek. Awkwardly, the doctor explained that Valisha had actually slapped her own face, so he expected to see bruises. However, that was not the case. Lisa angrily pointed out that she had seen his cheeks turn red with her own eyes. She questioned if he was joking, but he asked her to calm down. Valisha felt sorry for him and decided to undergo further examination. The doctor inquired about what she had hit herself with, and she informed him that she had used her hand. She was shocked when he investigated her hand and announced that it was impossible for her to have caused the redness with her own hands. Lisa remained concerned, but he reassured her that there seemed to be no issue. If he were to prescribe something, there might be unwanted side effects. He believed it would be best for Valisha to get some rest. Lily let out a sigh of relief, realizing that Valisha was truly okay. Valisha wondered why everyone was reacting this way when she had simply hit her cheeks. The head maid and chef entered and asked if the young miss was all right. Valisha blushed, thinking that they didn't have to interrupt what they were doing just to check up on her. As she held her cheeks, Lisa called the doctor in an angry tone, claiming that it was a misdiagnosis. The two maids scolded the doctor, but he explained that the change in color could be due to emotions. Nevertheless, he would prescribe an ointment for Valisha. Valisha raised her hand and exclaimed that she wasn't sick. She had been trying to put an end to all of this, but if she left it like this, she would feel bad for the doctor. Valisha explained that the doctor had done nothing wrong, surprising the maids. With a bright smile on her face, Lisa clarifies that she was attempting to cheer herself up. Confused, she asks why she would hit her own cheeks. Suddenly, a realization dawns on her as she observes Valisha from a distance, appearing to be walking a lonely path. Lisa concludes that Valisha must have been feeling incredibly lonely, which led her to hit her cheek in an attempt to lift her spirits. Overwhelmed with guilt, Lisa drops to her knees and apologizes, while the maids bow down, admitting they misjudged the situation. Valisha is unable to comprehend what is unfolding before her. Lisa explains that ever since she arrived, she wanted to serve by Valisha's side, but instead chose to give her space. Therefore, apart from the essential tasks, she simply observed. Valisha is puzzled by the term watched, prompting Lisa to clarify that she was discreetly observing from behind a tree to avoid making her uncomfortable, akin to stalking. Valisha had no idea that Lisa perceived her as lonely and appreciates her considerate nature. She had never realized the extent of Lisa's involvement. Valisha believes Lisa may have felt intimidated by her. She reveals that hitting something is her way of relieving stress, leaving the maids, chef, headmaid, and even the doctor in shock. Valisha questions whether it is acceptable to release frustration in such a manner, or if it is reserved only for the daughter of a villain. The doctor breaks down, admitting his failure to recognize Valisha's inner turmoil, expressing regret for his incompetence. Lisa contemplates whether she is truly fit to be a servant of the Vawa family. She then presents Valisha with a plushie, offering it to her for comfort while she sleeps. Playing with the plushie, Lisa introduces it as Valisha's guardian angel, promising to ward off any frightening thoughts during her dreams. Valisha finds the concept unsettling, unsure of how to react as she had destroyed all her plushies in her previous life. Lisa squeezes the plushie, making it squeak, and claims it is greeting Valisha. Enchanted by the talking plushie, Valisha expresses her delight, squeezing it repeatedly. Later that night, a bird watches her from a nearby branch. Valisha hiss the. Awoken by a sound, Valisha ponders who it could be, then realized it might be an assassin. She fearlessly approaches the window, but only sees a white bird. Suddenly the bird furiously calls her brat. That's leaving a guest outside the window. He tells her to open the door. She becomes angry. Suddenly she realizes that a bird should not be able to speak the human language. In other words, it's a creature which did not exist inside the novel. She opens the door, anticipating something impactful. The bird calls her a regressor. She questions how it knows she's in regressor. The bird states obviously because it has lived in this world for hundreds of years. Valisha then wonders if this bird could be a helper, an elite helper, cute and white, very talkative, and approaches her when she's alone. There are rumors that helpers often appear in front of regressors. Suddenly the bird is captured by a furious Lisa. She's mad that the bird disturbed Valisha's sleep. Lisa declares she'll take care of the bird. As it pleads for help, Valisha wonders where Lisa came from. Could she have been watching her the whole time? She pleads with Lisa to let the bird go. Lisa refuses, since they don't know how much germs is on that bird. The bird exclaims, "Did you just call me a germ?" The bird protests, claiming to be the world's best helper. "I doubt it, if it was captured so easily." Unfortunately, Lisa just wants it to shut up, since she can't understand it. Lisa plans to get rid of their uninvited guest. Valisha wonders how to stop Lisa from getting rid of him. She has a lot she wants to ask. She grabs onto Lisa's outfit, telling her to release the bird. With a gorgeous smile, Lisa states that since Valisha is so kind, she won't be cruel to it. Valisha is getting desperate. Suddenly a thought comes to mind. Valisha reveals the birds are her friends, just like the cat plushie. She does the same with the birds. She invited the bird to a secret meeting as she thought it would be fun to play together. Lisa released the bird as she realized she ruined it. Lisa smashed her head in the wall, desiring to protect Valisha's innocence. Valisha's asked if her head hurts. Lisa smiles and asks if she'll be invited next time. Valisha informs her only animal friends are allowed. Lisa questions if it's okay if she simply wears an animal mask. However, Valisha looks away thinking she's scary. The bird looks at them angrily. As Lisa exclaims it's a promise, the bird cries, exclaiming it's the first time it's been treated so cruelly in 500 years. Valisha apologies, but the bird is still mad that a 18-year-old grabbed him. Valisha offers the bird leftovers from what she ate previously. The bird states, "How dare you try to appease me with that?" But the smell has caught his attention. He says she has no respect, but he's tempted, staring at the beautiful, sweet pink cake. The helper starts drooling. Valisha notices he's eating and asks if he's calmed down, now that the helper's stomach is full. The helper introduces itself as the helper of this world, helper of the regressors, the reincarnated and the possessed. He is known as the helper of the return. Vinny, Valisha questions why she regressed. However, Vinny bluntly states he doesn't know either. Valisha is furious, and Vinny is quick-witted enough to notice. He flies above her, stating he's helped 50 people so far, and he still doesn't know such things in detail, because that's something the regressors must realize on their own. Valisha questions why is he here then. The rumors said that a helper knows everything, so it seems like he just ate her cake on his useless. Vinny reveals he's come for another reason. He conjures a paper emitting a golden glow. Its content congratulated her in her 100th life. As Duchess Vivian said, she is a gift for Cassis. Her birth was no mistake. The past is the past. Now it's time for someone to be a part of that world. Also, her father is in a bad condition, so she should look after the Duke. Valisha asked if God sent it to her, but Vinny explains his job is to be a helper. Giving answers is not included in the contract. It's the first time Valisha has received such vague instructions. Vinny flies away and tells her to figure it out. Valisha angrily shouted at Vinny that he's not doing his job properly. How can she care for her father if he doesn't come back? The next day, Lisa cheerfully attempts to wake Valisha, but she wants to sleep more. Why would the villain's daughter even wake up so early? Suddenly she smells a sweet and fragrant smell. She then gets up following the smell. At that moment, Lisa lifts her in the air, with the intention of washing her face. Lisa takes her away, leaving the strawberry cake behind. Valisha pouts. As Lisa apologizes for waking her up like that, she reveals that today is a special day. His Excellency said he would be there for lunch. Lisa explains when she was being examined by the doctor. She fell asleep and a blood test was conducted. The results is that she's a direct Vawa descendant. She's S mini version of His Excellency. And if she continues to grow like this, she'll become a female version of him. Anyways, she believes Cassis is coming back to check the DNA results. But it would have been better that Cassis acknowledge it early. However, Valisha doesn't care if he admits it or not. But the content of the letter comes to her mind and she decides she should try, even if it's just because of the letter. Valisha reaches her hand to the door knob. As she opens the door, a purple aura escapes. Suddenly we have a flashback. In her previous life, they never had a meal together, not even once. The few times they almost did, something came up and ruined it, so she always ate on her own. His only focus was reviving her mom. He wasn't concerned about anything else at all. Duchess Vivian said she is a gift to Cassis, but that can't possibly be called a gift. The maids discuss that Valisha must have been looking forward to this. Valisha sighs, believing he won't come this time either. She's just hungry. She wants to make a fuss for food, but that would make her no different than before. A butler informs her Cassis will arrive soon. She stares at him. She inquires if he is Agasa. He bows honor that she knows his name. He is the House of Vawa aide, Agasa. He's the one who manages Vawa family finance. In other words, he's the key figure to when it comes to getting money. In a sweet tone, she inquires if she can get gold, since she's a direct descendant of the Vawa family. He explains she can get more than gold and her monthly allowance will begin next month. She covers her mouth smiling. The Vawa family is one of the 4 great families in the empire. So even for a young child like her, the monthly allowance is 10 million gold. At that rate she'll get a house in 3 months. She laughs wickedly at her genius. Aga comments her smile is the same as Cassis. Valisha is surprised that she smiled like a villain without realizing it. Valisha states it's because she's his daughter. Aga exclaims, "Of course, small miss." In a cold tone she states it's not small miss, it's Valisha. He says, "Of course, small miss," which makes her angrier. A purple aura appears as she exclaims her name is Valisha. He explains he'll stop calling her that when she grows up. She slams her hand on the table and points at him, stating she'll call him baby as well. He smiles, stating that would make them buddies. She finds him to be weird. At that moment Aga receives a letter. Finally they'll be told he's not coming. Aga nervously states they should continue with the lunch. It's good that she has no expectations. She needs to eat then take a nap. She's the villain's daughter after all and nothing can change it, not even regression. After waking up from the nap, she calls out to Lisa. Noticing no one there, she walks down the hallway. She's been walking for a while and can't see a single soul. She then spots Lisa wondering what she should do. Valisha calls out to Lisa, which catches her by surprise. Noticing something odd, she asks what's happening. Lisa tells her it's nothing. Lisa tries to bring her back to the bedroom, saying it's still nap time, but Valisha states napping is not the issue. Valisha asks what could she be hiding, Suddenly she hears someone confirming to Cassis that Valisha is a direct descendant of Vawa. Valisha run away, pass all the maids and servants who are taken by surprise. She spots her father, who informs Aga that he simple came for treatment and would be gone soon. Valisha hugs her dad, but for some weird reason everyone seems horrified. Suddenly Valisha opens her eyes, and sees blood on the floor, her clothes is covered in blood, and she's taken aback. She looks at her father, who looks at her with a cold expression. Valisha backs away, realizing it's the same way they broke down at their execution. Aga informs him, he didn't expect the small miss to be awake. She must have ran to see him, because she was excited. She has seen something she shouldn't have. So he believes it's better he leaves. Suddenly she notices his puffy eyes. Evidence that he's been crying. In her former lives they lived in different buildings. So all she knew was that he was busy trying to revive mom. She never imagined that he would cry, despite her father losing her mom. She tried to pretend she didn't care, like it didn't matter to her, but her dad could simply be someone who has lost his way without her. He's not just a simple villain. She can't continue this life as it is now, even if it doesn't change. She calls out to her father, explaining that if she was mom she would be worried, because her mom said skipping meals is bad. Valisha smiles, stating she would be worried if he doesn't eat. He looks down at her in silence, stating he'll eat some bread first. Suddenly Aga and the maids are stunned. Cassis lifts her up and places her over his shoulder, ordering them to prepare bread for him and prepare what Valisha normally eats. So for the first time in all her life, she will be eating with her dad. Valisha wears a new dress and thanks them for the food. Cassis exclaims she eats well. Valisha comments that mom likes people who eat well. She inquires if he doesn't eat properly. He exclaims he does. When asked when, he states now. Now when asked Valisha, he's visible bothered while eating. Hick inquires if he should bring another bread. Valisha inquires if he knows how much work it took for that bread to reach the table. Does he think the bread fell out of the sky? He should say thank you for the great food, then eat. Cassis remembered his wife saying the same thing. She said if he leaves anything he would be scolded. Valisha words bring back old memories. He reveals that Vivian said that too. Valisha believes she now knows how to deal with her dad, with a cute face and a concerning tones. She explains her mom hates leftovers the most and inquires if he's not gonna eat it. He stares at the bread with a downcast expression. Valisha fake cries, stating her mom would be sad seeing this. She would be sad and worried. He holds the bread as she continues speaking. Valisha then thinks she said too much. Cassis questions Vivian scolded her. Valisha is startled by his question. She explains that her mom would stretch her cheeks. If she leaves food behind, she would lose some of her baby cheeks. Cassis eats the bread, commenting seeing her eat, he doesn't think she would lose any. He tells her to eat everything and don't leave anything behind. He gets up and leaves as Valisha ponders why he sat down if he was going to leave so quickly. She says he must be angry, but Lisa reveals he's not as he ate all his food. Lisa shows Hicks. He comments that Cassis always leave food behind. And this is all thanks to the young miss. Valisha states you got to eat well to become a villain. In the Forbidden Region, at the Shadow Forest, a witch comments that Cassis got all the ingredients. The witch had said she's the only witch who can revive the dead. The witch asks if he can bring more of the same ingredients. However, she previously said what he brought would be enough. She changes her mind again, stating it will be enough. The witch opens a bottle, but Cassis grabs her hand, inquiring if she's using poison to revive the dead. The witch is taken aback. Cassis explains what she tried to put in it is poison. With trembling hands, she states he must be interested in this field. With intimidating eyes, he comments it's because of the amount of lives he's taken. He uses his aura to choke her. She pleads that she can revive her. Unfortunately, the Duke doesn't fall for her lies. Suddenly the Duke bumps into a girl, who begs him to spare her. While trembling, Cassis states he has no intention of harming her. She's done nothing wrong. She inquires if he's taking her as a slave. Cassis is confused, commenting that there are no slaves in this empire. The girl thinks she'll die too, as she was the witch's slave. The Duke orders his men to deal with her, find someone who will take care of the child. The girls is astonished as the Duke orders Aga to check their background properly. Aga says this time to a fraud. Cassis never expected it to be easy. He inquires about the child. Aga says he sent her to people with a good reputation. For a moment he thought he saw it wrong. The girl reminded him of his daughter, Valisha, but he assures himself that they were nothing alike. Nonetheless, he's glad he found her. Before it was too late, he asked if Valisha usually eats alone, to which Aga says yes. Aga suggests arranging a meal for them, as the young miss would like it as well. However, Cassis says that's too much meddling and Vivian comes first, but if they have time first, they will go back. Meanwhile, things have taken an unexpected turn in Valisha's plan to run away. the secret animal gathering made by Lisa, was gaining more followers. The maids notice the food has gone and they all rush to bring dessert. Valisha is left alone and she ponders that she never thought she would be loved so much. She should be nice to the maids who like her, but would it be better if her dad was a fool for her? Suddenly someone asks what she's doing there. She is shocked to see her dad.